What's up guys, Manny from Motomillion, and let's talk about our M1000RR build plans. Guys, here's our 2023 M1000RR, and if you've already spotted it, it's missing the mirrors because the bike is in process of getting PPF'd. What is PPF? It's paint protection film. We'll have a complete different video about it for you guys, and I'm only getting it done because this bike's all carbon, and carbon gets chipped super easily, especially with these super sticky tires that we're running on the street now. And I just want to protect the bike as much as possible, and that's why we're doing the PPF on the bike. And this video is all about our build plans and what we're going to be doing with this bike. It's by no means definitive. We might change things as it comes and goes. And don't forget, this bike is brand new and it's so different from an S1000RR. There might be some new parts that come out, and since there's going to be some new parts most likely on the way, we might shift things around and change things. But as a roadmap, I kind of have a really good idea what I want to do. If you watched our first video about this bike where we revealed it, and it was my first time ever seeing a 2023 M1000RR in person, I think it didn't do justice because we have such special bikes around us that this kind of blends in a little bit, especially in its stock form. And I'm going to be open and honest, I like BMWs, but I'm by no means a fanboy of BMW. It's just, you know, they haven't done it over the years for me. Maybe 2015 was a great year when the S1000RR was refreshed and it was a really nice bike. But over time, other manufacturers have come out with bikes that are a little sharper in terms of the excitement that they offer. And the BMW has always been the dull bike that's out there. But let me tell you this, it's sunk into me a little more, and I've gotten to be around it a little more and think about it. This bike is really special because this M1000RR, unlike its predecessor, which was the 21 and 22 M1000RR, is so different from the S1000RR that it is truly, at least in terms of the looks department, it's a special bike. I have yet to ride this bike, and just because once we get the PPF done and do a couple of the things that I'm going to discuss, I'll get it on the road and do our first ride. But when you look at this bike, it's just completely different from an S1000RR from this point on, and it is really special. We're going to be doing a lot of things to the bike, and let's start talking about some of the stuff in the front end. And the big piece is this one right here. We have our Öhlins FGRT fork. I think this bike deserved Öhlins setup and a Brembo setup from the factory, but let's not forget there's always costs involved, and probably some of you guys might know it, some politics involved in the background of things, why some companies don't use Brembo and Öhlins, and I'm not going to go into the details, but this bike is a homologation special. What does that mean? This bike was created to fit into a World Superbike series, and the rules of that racing series dictate what they could sell this bike for. And in the past, some companies, especially car companies, when there were such rules for racing, they've gone crazy. They've made vehicles that they've lost money on, but the times have changed, and they kind of have to still stick to their budgets and make sure that they don't go crazy. So all in all, in defense of BMW, I think they've held back from some stuff because of that budget rule that they have, that they really want to don't make a product that loses money. But luckily we have ways to improve it. So that Öhlins fork will be on this bike. There's only one challenge with it. So Öhlins says that fits this bike, and they don't say if it's the competition pack or not. In the US, we only get the competition pack, but in Europe, you could, or other areas of the world, you could get this bike that comes with a white tank, and that means that it's not a competition. It also doesn't come with these aero discs. I'm going to call these aero discs, guys, because I don't know the exact name for it. And this thing attaches to your fork leg. It actually has a hole in the fork leg over here where the bracket attaches to. And if you look at our Öhlins fork, it does not have anything like that, and technically there is no way to make a hole in there. It already has some bolt holes where it's been tapped. I think what we're trying to do is that we're going to try to find a way to machine this safely, if it's possible, to run those aero discs on it, because I think it looks really cool on the bike, and it's a competition pack, and I really want to keep him. So that's the first challenge that we have with running the Öhlins setup. And we're going to be running the matching Öhlins rear suspension setup, which is the TTX GP shocks. The thing is, I've had this comment from a friend of mine saying, hey, it's got the yellow spring on it. This bike comes with a blue spring. I don't know if it matters for me that much. I'm actually used to the old ones running the yellow springs and it's not that visible. I don't know, should we go through the trouble of getting this powder coated the same blue color as the stock spring as you see over here? Or should we just call it a day and just install it like this? I think I want to keep the yellow spring, but I want to hear from you guys. Again, all Olin stuff, even the car lineup of stuff comes with this yellow spring, and it's kind of the signature touch of Olin's. Other than the gold, it's their yellow springs. And I think I want to keep it on there, but I want to hear from what you guys are saying in terms of what we could do. And speaking of the front end, we are going to be running a Brembo brake setup on the bike. We're going to run the complete Brembo setup. The brakes actually standing still here, it feels pretty good. It's the same brakes as the last year's model. And I think it's probably the pads or the rotors or a combination of them that the brakes are not as sharp in terms of the initial bite. That could be solved with pads, but I think I want to take our time and replace all the braking system to Brembo. After all, I think Brembo is the top of the line braking manufacturer that's out there that this bike deserves. But the question is, do we run the Stylema calipers, which are extremely good value for money, and it gives us the option of running black, red, or the silver calipers? Or should we just go all out and run the GP4 MS calipers from Brembo, which are their top of the line nickel plated calipers that's for road use? I really don't know the answer. I haven't made my mind about it, but I'm kind of leaning towards the Stylemas because that is such good value for money, and it's not a budget constraint. You guys have seen us do pretty crazy projects around here. It's just those Stylema calipers are so good that even putting those Stylemas on this bike, I bet you that's going to be an upgrade over these calipers. We'll make that decision over time before we get to it, and I want to hear your thoughts about that as well. And the other little hiccup that we have is this rear caliper on this bike. This rear caliper is a 94 millimeter caliper, meaning that this bolt hole to this bolt hole is 94 millimeters in length. Brembo does not make a product that's 94 millimeters. I believe it's 82 or 84 millimeter calipers they make for the rear. We might have to machine a rear caliper bracket for this bike because this is proprietary to the M1000RR. It has a quick change setup in the back. We're going to take a look. We're going to start taking this bike apart. We might do away with the quick change setup because does it really matter on a road bike? We're not endurance racing this bike. And we might see if our TWM rear caliper brackets actually fit this bike, and if they do, we might get away with it easily. If not, I'll probably get a new caliper bracket machine, then we'll keep that quick change setup on this bike. And another big piece is the fuel tank. If you watched our first impressions video, I did count quite a few of the M's on this bike. I think the final word that you guys put on the comments was that you guys can spot 23 M's on this bike, M's being these things. I'm not too crazy about them. I know that's an M1000RR, but to me, doesn't suit my taste. I want to get rid of as many M's as possible. And the easiest way to start getting the M's off this bike is change this fuel tank. And partly it's not really because I want to get rid of the M's, but I want to make this the ultimate street bike from BMW. And we're going to be losing around 8 to 10 pounds with our full 6 fuel tank that's right over here. And this is a full monocoque fuel tank that is carbon fiber. It's not a cover. If you want to run a cover on your bike, no judgment from us, go ahead. But since we have the ability and these parts over here, I really want to run these. This is a full carbon fiber fuel tank that has a Kevlar lining on the inside. And for the customers in the US, this fuel tank is actually ethanol safe. I don't know about E85, if you want to run E85 on these things, but at least the pump fuel, which has up to 10% ethanol, is safe on these things. And as you see, there's no big M's on this bike. And I would love to change this fuel tank on the bike, and we are going to be changing this fuel tank on the bike in one of our episodes. And talking about the fuel tank, we're going to be running our fuel cap from TWM. As you know, they make carbon fuel caps and CNC aluminum fuel caps. I'm leaning towards the CNC aluminum because I kind of want that contrast. The carbon ones are really nice and really popular. If I was keeping this tank, maybe I would have run the carbon one on it, but since we're running a carbon tank, it's going to have the CNC machine TWM fuel cap on it. And talking about CNC machine parts, these rear sets are beautiful. They're made by Gillies Tooling for BMW. They are available for you guys. So if you guys want to run these on your K67 S1000RRs or your older generation M1000RRs, they should fit those bikes. If you check our website, they're readily available on there. Just because they're the stock rear sets of this bike, I kind of want to change them. And we have these beautiful Alpha Racing rear sets, and we have their Superbike setup as well. I think I want to switch to those on this bike and just change things up a bit. But I want to take a look at it, and also why I want to run those versus the Litex. I really like the Litex. Usually I would love to run the Litex, but on the old models and also on the K67 S1000RRs all the way to 2023, you could play with the colors, with the red, with the blue. It looks really cool. But I think this bike is so, yes, it has the M colors, but it's a little more monochrome compared to the other bikes. That's why I was thinking of running the Alpha Racing rear sets, because it's all black. And we'll see if it can make those Superbike ones fit on this bike. I think it should fit. And the rear sets are attached to the rear exhaust on this bike. And let's talk about the exhaust. We are going to be running a full Acura system, and I would love to run this Akrapovic mid-length exhaust. This is the carbon fiber exhaust with the titanium tip in the back, and we call this the mid-length because there's another exhaust that we have, which is the full carbon exhaust. It's a little longer. This sounds really good, and it actually suits the bike quite a bit just because of the color scheme of it. So I'm thinking of running this. And the good thing about this setup is that we could change to a GP Shorty setup or to the full carbon setup, or even run our stock can on this bike with our Akrapovic header and mid-pipe setup so that we could change things around. And stay tuned, because we're gonna have a video coming up where we wanna take this bike on the dyno or another S1000RR and switch the cans around just to see if it actually makes difference in the power. And I know most of you guys are saying run the GP Shorty. That's probably the most popular setup that's on these bikes. And I like it, but it's just been, 3 years that's been out, and it's available everywhere and on every bike, just to be a little different. And also I love the sound of this exhaust system that I'm gonna run this. To be honest, I was actually gonna run the aero exhaust on this bike, the aero competition exhaust that we have for these things, the high mount. But I'm gonna spill the beans. 650 Eve actually wanted to run that on his 2023 M1000RR. And for the sake of not having exact carbon copy bikes, I decided that we'll go with this one because I really like this setup. I haven't heard it on a 23 M1000RR, but it sounds really good. And it looks absolutely stunning to me. But again, this video is about sharing our build thoughts and processes with the bike. I would love to hear from you guys, so put those comments in the comment section below and let us know what you guys want to do. And let's get to the handlebars. Guys, this is by no means a bashing video with some of the stuff on this bike, but it's some of the stuff that actually really bothers me on some of these bikes. And I want to show you something. If you come and take a look at the throttle setup of this bike, there is so much play on this throttle. When you go full throttle, it just plays around. And luckily we have solutions for these, both on the Ducatis and on the BMWs. We have the CNC machined clamps or complete new throttle setups. And on this bike, we're gonna run our Alpha Racing e-throttle on it. I wanna change the grips. To be honest, I don't use these bikes to go for long journeys or to be out in the cold, because it kinda is weird to me that they would provide heated grips on a bike that has this aggressive of a tire. I think if it's that cold outside that you need heated grips, you probably shouldn't be riding around with those tires. So that's my take, but also we live in Miami. We probably don't need heated grips here. But the main thing is that these grips feel not the best out there. And on BMWs, if you've ever tried to change your grips, it's not easy because you have to shave this away and not damage your heated grip elements, or just get rid of everything and just change your grips. But on these K67s, we got our Wonder Wheel here, and this grip on the left side, this is not symmetrical, so that kind of makes things a little complicated on how you would go on about changing the grips. Up to now, there is no company that makes our MotoGP style switch panels on the left side. I'm going to start digging around and asking companies if they are going to make something for it. And if they do, you could be sure that I'm going to get rid of that and change our grips. But until then, maybe I'll find a solution, because we have this bike over here to play around and see what we're gonna do. And when I said we were gonna run the full Brembo setup on this bike, obviously we're gonna change our master cylinder, and we most likely will find some sort of a Rizoma reservoir to run in the front. One thing that's been haunting me, that I've been looking around even before we received the bike, and I knew that it's gonna be a challenge, were the wheels. Again, this is by no means a bashing video of this bike. Obviously, we bought this bike and we really like it. But the wheels, the carbon wheels, they've had their fair share of issues over the years. I just don't feel too confident in running them on our own bikes and running it on a bike that I may be riding around. So we've been looking at options. The easiest option that I have is the Cativa RSA wheels, which when I say Cativa, they're made by OZ Racing, obviously. Cativas usually used to be the magnesium wheels, which are for consumer models. But in World Superbike, magnesium wheels are banned. So the Cativa lineup, the RSA, is only available for race teams to purchase, and they're forged aluminum wheels. They weigh only half a pound more than the setup, I believe. I think we had weighted on another bike we had before. That might be an option that we're going to run on this bike, but I really want to get my hands on a magnesium forged setup for this bike. I've been doing some digging around. Unfortunately, Marchesini does not make, and it's pronounced Marchesini, guys, not Marchesini. So Marchesini doesn't make any forged magnesium wheels that fits the rear wheel, because the front wheel is exactly the same as a K67S 1000RR, but the rear wheel fitment on this bike is specific to the M1000RR, and Marchesini doesn't have an option. And I've been digging around. There is a Cativa R wheel by OZ Racing, which is a true forged magnesium wheel. It's only available for the race teams. I'm trying to ask some of our good friends to see if we could actually get those for this bike so that we'll have even more weight benefits over these carbon wheels. If not, I think we'll just run the consumer models, which is just the Cativa magnesium forged wheels. The only problem is, I don't know if you've ever tried to get your hands on a forged magnesium wheel. They are so hard to get because they're not readily available. You have to order and wait 6 to 8 months. And we'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll find a solution. But I think the next best thing for this bike is going to be those Cativa RSA World Superbike spec wheels. I don't know what you think about it. Let us know. If you have any other ideas for wheels, let us know. I thought about the GP Tech wheels by BST. They're their latest carbon wheels. The only thing is that that wheel is not road legal, and there's a reason for that. I think that wheel is so performance oriented. It's only meant for road races on the track, and it's not DOT rated. Because of that, I think it's not exactly made to pass DOT specifications. And we don't drag race, but even on their website, it says not for drag racing and not for road use. And even, I guess, the shock from launching a bike for drag racing kind of might do some damage to the wheel. They look absolutely stunning. And if they were DOT legal, you could have been sure that I would have run them instead of these M carbon wheels on the bike. And let's not forget, that would have gotten rid of 4 M logos on this bike as well. There's one on each side on the wheels. And here's a controversial topic, guys. I've been talking to STM, and they have a dry clutch listed for this bike. And I know a lot of people hate the dry clutches on the Ducatis that we run, but for me, it's so cool because it's so racing derived. And if you watch any form of really top end competition, the bikes usually run the dry clutch because the benefits of easy to replace the clutches, also the benefits of having more power drive your rear wheel since the dry clutch does not sit in your oil. I want to run that on this bike when it's available. I think I'm going to go that route. We'll see. I know this might infuriate a lot of you guys, but this might get replaced with a dry clutch, guys, so don't be surprised if that comes along. I think that's also mid to end of summer launch date for it. So if I could get my hands on one as quickly as possible, I want to do it. And I think STM has actually developed that kit for BMW's World Superbike team. We'll see. Stuff like that, the information really doesn't get passed around. And sometimes if it gets passed around to us, we have to keep our mouth shut because we do talk to some of these people and they do trust us with not spilling the beans. Not just because they don't want you guys to know, because I think that's called trade secrets that they don't want some other manufacturers or racing teams out there knowing. But let's get back to the topic of this bike over here and the subframe. Yes, the subframe will be available for this bike. Full Six is actually working on it right now. The subframe, the shape of it is at least different from the previous model years. I haven't looked inside on how this is mounted, but from what I could tell, it's exactly the same subframe. But since the Full Six carbon subframes are all monocoque pieces, it has to match the new aero style of the back. And from what I understand it's going to be available towards the end of summer, and you guys can be sure that once that's available, we're going to swap it over, because I believe on the previous generation it was saving around 6 pounds of weight. That's quite substantial, especially if you think about it. It's so high up, and it's at such an extreme point of the bike. It's almost all the way at the back, so the added benefits even are multiplied because of the way that the weight sits. But I think that's our build plans. There's other small things that will change, like the Alpha Racing quick shifter and other bits and pieces around the bike. But those were the major pieces that I think that we were going to do. And if you guys are looking at this piece over here, just like I am, this doesn't look too bad for a stock piece, but we have the NRC tail tidy kit on this bike. And these are the new ones for the 2023 model years. It fits both the S1000RRs and the M1000RRs. When we change it over, I'll tell you guys why. I think I've mentioned this before, why we stick to the NRC tail tidy kits. I know there's a lot of other options out there, but we love their products, and I'll go to detail about those later on. But I think that's it, guys. This is our build plans for this bike. As I mentioned, by no means this is definitive of what we're going to do with the bike. So if you have any comments on what we want to do or what we should do, please go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. On our shop update video, we actually did ask you guys what bike should we add onto our shop over here to show you guys and to work on, and we got some really good ideas from you guys. So I expect nothing less from you guys in terms of our M1000RR. But all in all, that is what comes to my mind right now. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Until next time, guys, have a good one.